Hello and welcome to 3 Minute Game Pass. I'm Nathan, and patch 1.03 of Elden Ring is out, and it has changed up a bunch of stuff in the game. So in this video, I'm just going to quickly go over some of the big changes from this patch, as well as some of the things that weren't changed. And this is going to basically just be me impromptu yelling about this. I don't actually have a script or anything, but I felt it was important to kind of add to the builds that were presented on the channel to make sure that you are still being able to build great characters and play through the game successfully. So let's just dive right into patch 1.03 and what changed and what's important. So first of all, there's a lot of new stuff regarding quests. They add new quest NPCs. They made it so that you can see NPCs on the map from the warp points near the graves, which is great. They added a bunch of summonable NPCs, all such a great NPC stuff. I'm not going to go into super deep detail about that, but it is a neat thing. Before going into the stuff that was nerfed, I'd like to discuss the things that weren't changed for those of you that are concerned about builds that you have already. The Moonveil Katana was not nerfed. Bloodhound's Fang was not nerfed. The Gravity Staff, the Meteorite Staff rather, was not nerfed. I don't know if they fixed the sorcery on that other staff. That's name is eluding me. There will be a picture of it on the screen right now. I don't know if that's fixed yet. I've been screwing around with it. I can't really tell. Not sure. If it did get fixed, it's probably one of the best staffs in the game now, so it's worth checking out. Additionally, they did not nerf the chicken farm. You can still farm that chicken spot. They did not nerf the cultist farm. That is still there. They did not nerf the boulder. As far as I can tell, the boss Mogus or whatever his name is that you can cheese, you can still cheese him. I do not think that has been changed. So overall, I feel like a lot of core stuff has not changed, and a lot of strong stuff is still very strong, which is great. Now, when it comes to the bad things, of course, the first big one is the Sword of Night and Flame got a nerf. Now, from what I can tell from this nerf, essentially, it deals about 20 to 30% less damage, as well as costs a bit more FP. Now, note, this is just for the weapon Ash. The weapon's actual, like, R1, R2 damage has not been changed. Now, the main question is, does it mean that this sword is now worthless? And I would say absolutely not. I actually think this sword is still very, very strong and very good. It just requires more building around it for it to be successful, which kind of fits with it anyway, considering its stat requirements. You're going to need more mind now, as well as putting more points into int and faith in order for its abilities to be stronger. So it's not quite as good in like a sword and board hybrid build because of the points distribution, but aside from that, I actually think it is still quite good. And if you're already using it, you shouldn't be worried. Just adjust your build accordingly. The sword is still really great. I feel like this nerf really mostly just affected it in PvP. Another item that got a fairly substantial nerf was the turtle shield. Unlike the Sword of Night and Flame, this shield, in my opinion, is now completely unusable. It no longer has the 100% physical block, which is one of the reasons why you would use the shield. It still provides stamina regeneration, so if you plan on never actually using it and just want it on your back for a two-handed build, I'd still say consider it. But aside from that, it's really just not very good, especially because they nerfed Barricade Shield. Barricade Shield nerf is also fairly significant. They increased the FP cost as well as decreased its duration by half, which is huge. It is still a very good Ash, but it is not nearly as broken as it was before in terms of just blocking everything. This directly affects the most recent build, the Bloodfang's build. For that, it actually is a pretty quick switch. I would just switch it probably to the Brass Shield, which is one of the best medium shields in the game. It does weigh a little bit more, so you might need some more endurance for that. And then put Barricade Shield on it. You can get that from the Dark Knight in the Weeping Peninsula. With this, you're about as good as you were before. You do lose that stamina regeneration, but with the amount of endurance that build ends up having anyway, I think you'll probably be fine. I was honestly thinking about replacing that shield anyway. Additionally, if you want to go way into it, you could also try using a Great Shield with that. You have lots of options with that build when it comes to what the shield should be. And since they didn't nerf Bloodhound's Fang, it's still very, very strong. I would recommend using it. The other change they made was Hoarfrost Stomp, which was that ice skill you could get really, really early in the game. This was, I assume, also mostly for PvP because people early game could go get it and then spam early PvP lobbies with it and just grief people. It was also just ridiculously overpowered in PvE. I think that's an okay change. The one build that used it didn't actually use it for its ability. It used it for its ice affinity that you could put on a knife, so not really a huge issue. Two more things I'm going to mention really fast. Bloody Slash got nerfed. I don't really know why. I guess it was very strong. I didn't actually use it all that much. Its cost increased and its damage decreased. I still think it's good. It's just a higher risk reward type situation. And the other thing that's worth mentioning is you used to be able to use a little cheese where if you use Determination or Roll Knight's Resolve on the right hand, it would apply to the left hand weapon as well. Mages were using this to get a free boost to damage. You can no longer do that. This was very obviously a bug, and so I'm not surprised at all to see it gone. The last thing was the Mimic Tier Ash, which is not in any of my builds, but it was the one summon everybody was using. I don't think this nerf is as significant as people think. They decreased the damage, but really the way you should have been using that was to tank anyway, and if you are a bleed build, it would apply bleed, and that has not changed at all. So I think the Mimic Tier is still fantastic. fantastic. It's not the summon it, take a nap, and watch it beat the whole game for you anymore, but it shouldn't have been that anyway, so I think that's a good choice. In terms of some really good stuff, they significantly made smithing stones drop more regularly, which is fantastic. The smithing stone economy is terrible compared to the somber smithing stone. It's why I almost always suggest weapons that use somber smithing stones. They're just so much better in literally every way, and they're so much easier to acquire. I really hope this helps people be able to upgrade more than like 2 regular weapons over the course of the run without worrying about it. They also now sell them in the shop earlier, and their prices have been significantly reduced, which is great as well, so you can get that upgrade quicker. Another huge change was buffs to almost every sorcery in the game, including reduced FP consumption and increased damage for almost all of the gravity spells. For the kind of slightly less used spells like Glintstone Comet Shard, Comet, Night Comet. And lastly, they increased the projectile speed of Greater Glintstone Pebble, or whatever it's called, which was basically an upgrade to Dingleberry that was worse, and now it's actually pretty good. If you're a sorcerer, I highly suggest checking out all of these new spells. I think the significant increase is great, and they didn't nerf Rock Toss or the Gravity Stick, so I think that mages are in a really, really good place right now, and this just will increase their amount of diversity. I do wish they had upgraded incantations, because I feel like incantations aren't really up to par when it comes to the sorceries in the game, except maybe that lightning bolt throw one, but we'll see what happens coming up. And the last huge thing, which if you got to this point in the video, you're going to be really excited about this, is that they fixed arcane weapons. Now, if you didn't know, almost all the arcane weapons in the game, the exception being the Reduvia and then the Dragon Scale Seal that used arcane, almost all of the other ones were broken. They did not scale at all, and in some cases, specifically the boss spear that you can get from Mogus or whatever his name was, that one didn't even use its physical attack. It was completely bugged, it only did its fire attack. It was a terrible weapon. It's still not an amazing weapon if I'm being honest, but they all do scale now, which means that the twin blade that you can get that has arcane scaling is really, really good, and more importantly, that Rivers of Blood katana might be the best sword in the game right now. It's definitely up there. It's unbelievably strong, especially now with arcane scaling. It was good before when it was broken, and now it's even better. I'm really happy about this because I just started building an arcane prophet for a video on the channel. Now, I was kind of disappointed that all the arcane weapons were just kind of garbage, and now that they've been upgraded, they're all incredibly strong, very good, very fun. If you want to build an arcane bleed build that kind of synergizes with faith and dragon skills, that is now completely viable. So overall, not really a ton of significant changes with regards to the builds on the channel. I still think that the Sword of Night and Flame Paladin build is valid, and I do think that the sword is worth getting. It does make it so the beginning of the game isn't completely easy mode, but it is still worth picking up and is still a great sword to have if you are a beginner. Although if you really are a true beginner, I'd recommend Astrologer, as that is really easy mode, honestly, especially with the Moonlight Katana, and later in the game there's an int dex sword you can get that's really good as well. The Turtle Shield nerf is kind of an enormous bummer, no way around that, but luckily there are lots of great shields in the game you can sub for, and aside from that, pretty much everything else has remained the same in terms of the builds. Again, all of the farms are still in place, everything else is still valid. So overall, I'd say this is actually a pretty good path, with the exception of the Turtle Shield, which didn't deserve it. I feel like the rest of it was kind of going to happen regardless, and I'm really excited to see what the new NPC quest lines are, as well as some other balance and bug changes that came along the way. And if you happen to be Astrologer, your life just got even better because pretty much all of your spells just got buffed. So not going to complain about that, I suppose. The Dingleberries reign supreme. And that is all I have for you today. Thank you for watching. I have probably 2 more guides left in me. I'm going to try and get one up this weekend and then one sometime next week. After that, we will see what comes next for Elden Ring content. But in the meantime, please keep watching the Game Pass reviews. Please keep commenting, enjoy the Elden Ring content, and have a great day.